evening. Welcome to Health Smart. I'm Joanne Campbell and I'll be your host tonight. Health Smart is a series of great health education programs brought to you by Hudson Valley Hospital Center. Every month we have a new interesting topic and great guests. And this month it's no different. I am so excited tonight to present these guests who come from the Leave the Light On Foundation. Good evening, ladies.
Good evening. Good evening.
This is, to my left, is Carol Campbell, the co-founder and executive director of Leave the Light On Foundation. Kendra is Kendra Rossney. You work as a support presenter with the groups, and we also have. Pardon?
Yes.
Yes, you do. And we also have Colin Sandler here, who's a social worker who's involved. So already I'm feeling we have a lot of people excited to be involved with this program. Yes. So let's start, if you don't mind, Carol, let's start with a little background and mission of Leave the Light On Foundation.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Joanne, for having us here. I mean, you have a great program, and I know you get the word out to the community about what's going on, so we really appreciate being here. Leave the Light On Foundation, let me first explain the name, because people are like, leave the light on. What do you work with Con Ed? Right. So the title of the foundation comes from growing up with our parents, my brother, sister, and I, and most people have the same story, where when you go out and you may come back late, your parents say to you, leave the light on, or leave the porch light on, or leave some light on, right? Right. So when Mom got ill, 2 years ago, well, 3 years ago now, and I actually did a painting for her to go into her nursing home room, and it was a painting of the house, and I called it Leave the Light On. Okay. So she could look up and see the painting, leave the light on, this is home, you know. And then we decided after she passed to do a foundation to help other people who are caring for their parents as they're going through their later stages or they're ill or whatever the case is. And let's call it Leave the Light On, because as people are passing, it doesn't have to be a depressing thing. It really doesn't. It can be like a really joyful time to transition from one place to the other. And so our goal is to support people as they're going through that. And sometimes they're not going through a transition, they're just going through taking care of someone. It's like leave that light on of hope and joy and uplifting spirit of the whole process. Okay. You know, let's just leave the light on.
I like it.
So our mission is to help caregivers through whatever process they're going through, and to give them support through support groups and through our hotline.
Okay, so really Leave the Light On is that lovely little image you gave for us for a person, as you say, maybe at the end of their life, an elderly person, or someone who needs care. Right. So whether they're in a sickness or disabled, people out there are taking care of each other. We're taking care of our families. And Leave the Light On is certainly just a wonderful image to leave for both the person being taken care of as well as the caregiver. Right. So this is great, because we know so many people in our community are caregivers. And, you know, sometimes you sign up for the job and sometimes you don't. But the point is, every situation is the same and different. And so it's very exciting that you and your family have thought compassionately about how can we serve in our community. Now, you were founded in 2010. Yes. And it's a foundation, which means it's you have volunteers, you get money from where? Do people pay for your service?
All of our services are free, and we want to keep it that way. Okay. We are a foundation that we give to the community. Traditionally, sometimes the term foundation is used for those who are giving money, but in our case, we're giving services. Okay. And we are working right now strictly volunteer-based, so we have a bunch of really wonderful people who are stepping up, like our two guests today, and just helping out with support groups and with the hotline. And of course, we take donations, and we'll take any that anyone wants to. But donations not necessarily monetary donations, but in-kind donations. Like they could be someone who has an office space that wants to, give us some office space, or someone who perhaps would like to make copies for us, or perhaps give refreshments at one of our support groups, or anything like that. We take all types of donations.
So this is, again, to our community, we're letting them know that this is a foundation that's saying we have volunteers and people of like mind that are interested in helping you. Now you're currently a new affiliation with Hudson Valley Hospital.
We are, and we're really excited about that, I have to say. I did work at Hudson Valley Hospital in the administration office, and I worked specifically with Dr. Higgins, as you know, is the Vice President of Medical Affairs, and he's a great guy.
And a great guy.
The whole community loves Dr. Higgins.
Yeah.
So. I had an opportunity while working with him to do patient rounds. And as you know, there's several departments that do patient rounds. So you'll have guest services that are rounding and checking on patients, and you'll have nursing staff, et cetera. As part of the administrative staff, I was able to go around just to check, to make sure that patients were doing okay. And, you know, I tell you, Joanne, it was just a great experience because I was already working on Leave the Light On Foundation in the evening. But this kind of solidified the whole thing.
Right.
Because you go around to the rooms, and let's face it, our doctors are great. Our nurse practitioners are great. Our nursing staff, they're all great. But they have, you know, a roster of patients to take care of. And so when I would go around and do rounds, you would find that there were a lot of patients who just really needed someone to hold their hand and talk.
Right.
That's it.
Exactly.
You know, they didn't have any complaints about the care.
Healing, not curing.
Exactly. And so that, like I said, that really solidified the fact that there's people out there that need support, that they need healing, they need the compassion of just being able to talk, having someone to talk. And of course, that includes the family members, those who are actually caring for those that are ill.
Right, because the transitions we see in the hospital, of course, is discharge planning, and that, you know, and now we're getting so much better at bringing the family in and saying, you know, what's best for everybody, and yet we still have many people in the community who are the caregivers.
Absolutely.
And not only the caregivers of the discharged patient, but they have a life, right? So caregivers of their spouse, caregivers of their children, caregivers at work, and so on and so forth. So I think, you know, the depth of what you're talking about is so obvious. And yet, you know, how exciting to be stepping in there with volunteers, with people, I love the term peer-to-peer, with people who, whether they've been there, done that, but, you know, don't come in and say, here's a set of commandments to be a good caregiver. It feels different than that.
Right, you know, you're absolutely right. And what we find is as people are coming to volunteer, they all have experience of some type of caregiving. You know, my brother and sister and I, we consider ourselves emergency caregivers in the sense that Mom was doing well. She was going on a trip to Vegas, and I got a meeting here, I have a convention here. But then she needed surgery, and then she had a massive stroke after the surgery. And so she went from being this very vibrant person to what we consider an emergency situation. But there's all different types of caregivers, and you know, even two of our presenters here, they have had caregiving experiences that, well, I'll let you guys tell you, so I won't talk for you.
I had an elderly aunt that actually lived across the hall from me, and I specifically moved into that apartment to be closer. I wasn't the primary caregiver. We had somebody in there taking care of her, but we were still responsible for medical appointments and follow-up and all these different things, and it really was a family effort. It was myself, my mother, my husband, and we were able to keep her at home for 5 years, where she would have potentially been in a nursing home with the level of care that she needed. I mean, she had round-the-clock help. And it was really, for me, it was a big experience because I was relatively young at the time, and it sort of brought me into this field of wanting to work with older people. She was in her 90s when I was in my 20s. She was a great aunt, so it was really an experience. And it's wonderful to be able to do that. And we gave her 5 years in her home where she wanted to be. And I thought that was a really wonderful thing that we were able to do. So
That's beautiful.
I actually have kind of a unique experience with caregiving. Years ago, my family purchased a home from somebody who probably just wanted to get away from the area. And an elderly woman it was her nephew, and an elderly woman lived there who owned the home. And part of the deal, believe it or not, was well, I don't have the resources to take care of my aunt here, so if you buy the home, then somebody needs to take care of her and figure out what's going to happen with her. So I was a teenager at the time, and I got thrown into, because I was the only girl, I'm the only girl in my house, that showering needs and those hygiene needs that kind of fell on me for a period of time. And it was one of those, like, not a family member, just somebody in need. And I found it, although initially was a little jarred by, like, why am I taking care of?
Right.
I actually found it a really fulfilling experience, just being able to be present for somebody who needed you to be present for them. So that's my experience with that. And I try to live my life in the spirit of caregiving, whether it's for friends or family, because certainly want that to happen for me in return.
Right.
We all start to think about that. That actually reminds me, both Colin and Kendra's story reminds me of the fact that we have a new category that we're really talking and enhancing right now, and that's caregivers under 30. And we have a great person. Her name is Leslie Rockefeller, and she's heading up our division for us. And she happens to be, I believe she's 24, and she's like a caregiver support for her mom who's ill. And her dad's the primary caregiver, but she has been living in California, and she's now, flying back and forth between New York and California, trying to help support and give her mom, that extra care. But, as we always think about caregiving as someone being like at least in their 40s.
Right, the older spouse or the semi-retired child, 60-something with a 90-something-year-old caregiving.
But not necessarily the case. Not necessarily
And I'm feeling too that when you're saying emergency, like when the person goes into that white noise, when the incident happens, where that independent person needs to depend, and now the next question is on who.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's a lot of help that people in our audience could get from, again, connecting with this Leave the Light On, like, I don't even know where to begin.
Right. Where do I start? Who do I call? What do I do?
So I see you have an emergency number of someone who can, like you said, be present on the phone, hear the story. I love that. I mean, that enriches my life every day, being able to be open and listen to someone's story without worrying about fixing. Right. Just be there for a while. And then to co-create a place of help, resources. It sounds like a lot of resources. So after the emergency situation, then you come down to, what are the other categories? Or
all right. So you have someone who's the emergency situation. You have someone who's living together, what we call living together. Okay. So this is, perhaps you have always had 3 generations of family members in your house, and so this is just part of how the culture of your family is. And so when you were growing up, you were taking care of grandma, and now you're taking care of your mom, and then your kids are going to take care of you.
Right.
And so it's just a living cohabitation category that we call it. Another category would be daily caregiving. So you're not necessarily living with the person, but maybe you're taking care of Dad on a daily basis. You're stopping by his house, you're opening his mail with him, you're picking up groceries,
Or like Colin, you were saying that even though someone helped you get the appropriate direct caregiver in the house, you had another responsibility, which was to check in and see how things were doing. So I think there's layers of cooperation and layers of resources. And also things change. Dad moves in and it's all good because he's got his room and I'm going to work. Well, something can happen where that changes catastrophically. Now, before I go to work, I have to get Dad's meals together. And when do I call in, and who helps me figure out how to navigate in that field of what do I get and who do I pay? And so is that also part of this?
It is. So what we're doing 2 things right now. That is the caregiver support groups with Hudson Valley Hospital, and it's the hotline. Now the hotline is just weekends right now. So if you have a question, and if you're really truly a caregiver, you have no life anyway, let's face it, right? So call us on the weekend.
Saturday morning, make your coffee, have your list, make sure people make a list before you call, so you don't forget anything. Give us a call,
right, or come to one of our support groups, because our support groups are going to be here at the Dempsey House, which is on the campus of Hudson Valley Hospital. And we'll be doing support groups on Saturday mornings and the following Thursday evening.
Okay.
So every first Saturday through the following Thursday
and
evening.
first Thursday kind of thing.
Right.
Okay.
Some exceptions, but pretty much that's the rule. So what the Leave the Light Foundation is doing is having an atmosphere, having a place where caregivers in our area can come and find out, well, how do I navigate through this whole process? What do I do? You know, and it's not a woe is me session, so, you know, if you need that, that's okay. But that's not what the support groups are going to be about. They're going to be about how do we help you get the resources that you need, and we're going to try to make it a little festive at times. You know, we'll have food, we'll have a little music sometimes. We're going to make it a place where it's actually a respite for the caregiver. You come and you can just relax for an hour. We'll have some things for you, and we'll bring in our presenters like Colin, like Kendra, to help.
So peers are going to be there, people who are in your situation but not, and rather than dwell on the not, let's find out, you know, what's happening and how can I do better for myself as a caregiver to maintain that energy, that positive energy. You know, that's an extraordinary thing to offer the community, so I'm so glad you're here. Now maybe you gals can talk a little bit about the support groups. Right? Because
they're going to be doing, they're going to be different presenters, and so they can tell you a little bit about what they will do.
Different resources that are presented.
Well, what I do, I'm a meditation/relaxation expert, for lack of a better way to put it. I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a certified yoga teacher, but for Leave the Light On, we are concentrating on the relaxation techniques and the meditation techniques and the benefits that it brings. You know, really being able to learn how to stay with your breath. And I know that sounds so simple, but you know, breath being life force brings so much to us. And sometimes in times of trauma or stress, you know, believe it or not, we hold our breath, even though it's, you know, involuntary, quote unquote.
We're in our brain, not in our breath.
Exactly. So, you know, one thing that we do with the support groups, one thing that I'm going to be doing when I do present with the Leave the Light On is to guide a meditation during that period of time. And the meditation, the intentions, you know, we want to make them fun. We want to make them not serious, not, you know, let's focus on the negative. But just focusing on bringing health and wellness to yourself so that you can then present it to somebody else and offer it to somebody else. Somebody told me one time, if you can't be good for yourself, you can't be good for anyone else. So what my goal, my contribution to Leave the Light On is to help people who might think that, well, I've never done it before, and feel it's completely inaccessible to them. Exactly, they have no time. Understand that you can do it anywhere. Just stopping and pausing and all the benefits that brings.
And the benefits, and this is as a holistic nurse, you know, the burnout. We also know the burnout of caregivers. And so rather than the old-fashioned way of waiting for patients to hit the wall and now waiting for caregivers to hit the wall, we do have science to understand that meditation, guided imagery, any relaxation techniques really do physiologically help you keep going.
Absolutely.
You got to turn it off. So there's such value in these tools that, like you're saying, people never thought, I don't think I'm going to be a meditator. Well, you quiet them down for a little while, and they come back next month, and they come back on Thursday night, and you know, it's a wonderful gift. That's great.
Yeah.
And Colin, what do you?
Well, my background is social work, and I've worked with the geriatric population my whole career. And I really feel that what the caregivers are lacking, from my perspective, is exactly what you said. Somebody to help them navigate the system. What is out there? What resources are available? How do I put in a plan that works for me? I need somebody to come and make mom lunch. She's okay by herself. I need somebody to be there all day long. I just need somebody on the weekends. You know, whatever that individual person's needs are, there really isn't a place to sit down and say, what are all the services that are out there? where can I get them? And then how do I pay for them? And that's such a huge stress because they feel so alone. They don't know where to turn. They get a lot of little pieces of information from a lot of different places and don't really know how to put it together. So what I like to try to teach the caregivers is all about these resources. These are all the wonderful things that are available to you, whether it's a home care agency, whether it's daycare, whether it's volunteers or home delivered meals. I mean, there's so many different things. But putting them together to meet your individual needs and understanding what they are, and of course one of the biggest worries is how do I pay for it? Because a lot of people cannot afford to do that, and children can't afford to take on mom and dad's care financially. They may bring them into their home, but they still have to go out to work. So who takes care of them while I'm gone? So I really help them to navigate that whole system. And it really amazes me when I sit down with a caregiver to watch that feeling of, oh my God, really? This is all available?
Take away the big question.
Yeah, it's so frightening to not have that information. And even just getting the information is the first step of a relief. Okay, there's something out there. Now then figuring out what the next step is. So that's what I really hope to bring to the group, is to help them understand what the resources are. Hopefully give them literature so they have something to take away with them. So it's not just talking, it's here is some real stuff that you can utilize and how to access it.
And that's that integrative approach of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. Reminding the caregiver that maybe the yoga class once a week, that 1 hour, is really exponential in your wellness, rather than seeing it as another thing to do. And I can only imagine, and you know, I think I'm going to pop in here and there, because I can only imagine that then you have relationships in this support group with other people in your community.
Absolutely.
You know, keep the light on. Well, everybody goes in their house at night, closes the door, and
leave the light on, but yes,
turns the screen on. You know, so leave the light on is saying, I'm part of the community too. Does anybody see me?
That's right.
You know,
thank you.
And so,
absolutely.
to have that opportunity for that this community, this part of our community, to come and get together and build relationships with others. And with, of course, you know, experts who can help with those real things. And at the speed of thought, caregiving is so big, but it has to be part of your life.
It does. It does have
and
to
I think
be.
that's the joy you're talking about. You know, if you
Absolutely.
keep feeling you're going to give, you're never going to feel good about that relationship. If we teach people how to share, you know, and what loving and kindness and keeping the light on is about sharing. It's not about, you know, giving more than you can afford to give. So this is awesome. Now, have you started the support groups here?
Our first support group will be December 1st. We actually had scheduled some in November, but we had the wonderful Hurricane Sandy.
And God help those people who are caregiving out there.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, I tell you that it also kind of brings into light the whole metaphor of it all, because so many people lost so much power, no lights, no, you know. And so this timing is just perfect. People are just coming with their lights back on, and we're saying, leave the light on, you know, and people are just coming together. And I tell you, Joanne, it really warms my heart when I have so many people like Colin and Kendra who have come and stepped forward and say, how can I help? What can we do to help people leave their light on? You know, what can we do? And we have other agencies. We're working with Westchester County Department of Senior Programs and Services, their Caregiver Coalition. I'm a member of the Caregiver Coalition.
I mean, there's a great resource.
Absolutely. They also have what's called care circles, and so we will be teaching our caregivers as they come into the support groups how to create a care circle, and that is your neighbor, your cousin, your aunt, and so that you have a support system all the time.
Consistency, and you know, again, those you can do something.
Exactly, and we will now become part of their circle. You know, then we want them to look at Leave the Light On as part of their circle, their support network, if they need something. And as we bring in, you know, we're actually calling for all former caregivers to, you know, contact us to come and help, because you know how it was for you. So now we want to pass the baton and we want to help other people.
Right. Yes. It's so valuable. Any caregivers in our audience, you know, what you've been through is unique and yet so helpful for
It
somebody
is.
else.
It is.
So December 1st, is that a Saturday?
It's a Saturday morning
Okay.
at 9:30 at
9:30.
the Dempsey House, right adjacent to Hudson Valley Hospital Center. It's a beautiful space that Hudson Valley Hospital has been so gracious to give us and to give caregivers in the community.
Okay.
And then we'll have the following Thursday, which is December 6th at 6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Right. So if it doesn't work for you for Saturday morning, you can come after
Right.
work
Right.
the Thursday, and we'll do that every month.
Awesome. Now, are people going to call and make reservations or register?
Yes, they do need to pre-register. Thanks
Okay.
for asking that.
Okay.
They do need to pre-register. And so Danielle O'Malley, she is one of the staff at the
Right.
foundation here at Hudson
Correct.
Valley Hospital. She'll be taking phone calls at 734-3794.
Okay.
Or they can go to our website because we have an online
Great.
registration there.
Okay.
So that's leavethelighton.org. leavethelighton.org, and so that you can find it. There's an online
Right.
registration, and they can just tap in their information. Seating is limited, so we need them to do that. I have to mention that our first support group session on December 1st is actually co-sponsored by Community for All Ages, and that's an agency in Peekskill.
Okay.
And they really stepped up, and they are paying for the catering of it. We're using Kathleen's Tea Room, which is a local
Nice.
business.
Nice.
And so they stepped up and paid for that to take care. They're an intergenerational agency that I've been working with. I've done some volunteer work with. They did some work for my mom. You know, they do great things. And so we have an ongoing relationship. And so they said, sure, you know, caregivers, of
The
course, will help.
positive light. Be drawn to the positive light.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being guests on the show, and also for being here tonight, giving up your time so that we can tell the community. Give a call. It's December 1st, so make whatever plans you need to make
That's
now
right.
to come at 9:30, and help yourself so that you can help others. You know, I always remind people that in the plane they say put the oxygen on yourself first,
Right.
and then help others. It's so simple, and that's what really caregiving support is about. You know,
It is.
you know, let's put the oxygen on you so you can breathe, not only survive, but thrive as a caregiver.
Yes.
And then when you thrive, you'll share with other caregivers, and we can keep building this thing.
That's right.
Okay, well, ladies, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Good luck, and happy holidays.
You too.
You too.
Well, that's our show for tonight, and thank you all for coming and paying attention. We'll be back next month with another topic and some more great guests from Hudson Valley Hospital. Be well.